determines residency for tax purposes? First, it is important to understand that your tax residency is different from your visa or immigration status. So being a non-resident in terms of immigration status doesn't necessarily mean you're a non-resident for tax purposes. The key determinant of whether you are a resident or non-resident for taxes is the actual number of days you've spent in the U.S. Generally, most international students and scholars who are on FJM or Q visas are considered non-residents for tax purposes. But the IRS has a rule for international students on J1 or F1 visas. They are automatically considered non-residents for the first 5 calendar years they spend in the U.S. After that 5-year period, the IRS will look at your substantial presence test. For the scholars and researchers on J1 visas, the case is slightly different. Instead of 5 calendar years, they are considered non-residents for tax purposes the first 2 calendar years only. After spending 2 years in the U.S. with the J visa, the IRS will evaluate your substantial presence test to determine your tax status. It's important to define what counts as a calendar year for tax filing purposes. For example, if you arrived in the U.S. on December 30th, 2023, but the university semester starts on January 10th, 2024, the IRS will actually count 2023 as your first calendar year present in the U.S., even if you only spent 2 days of 2023 in the country. Be very mindful of this. After either 2 or 5 calendar years, the IRS will use your substantial presence test to figure out your residency for tax purposes. The substantial presence test reviews the number of days of your presence in the U.S. in the last 3 years to determine your residency tax status. If you are considered a resident for tax purposes, Sprint Tax will not proceed with your filing, and you'll need to use a resident tax provider, like TurboTax, to file your taxes. If you don't know whether you would count as a resident or not for tax purposes, do not worry. The good news is that Sprint Tax will figure out your tax status for you for free. All you need to do is complete Step 1 of the Sprint Tax questionnaire to find out whether you are a resident or non-resident for tax purposes. And this service is provided free of charge.